Hello, in this video we will show you how to use the RTI DDS complex types generator in the RTI DDS toolkit for LabVIEW. We'll discuss some of the limitations and demonstrate best practices for type creation and generation. So let's start off looking at our type. So our type here is my complex type, which is a cluster with a emerid to use as a key, and an array of nodes that each node has its own key, a timestamp, and a data array. Within the data array, every data element has its own key, and a heat map, which is itself a 2D array of type U32, and a distances array, which is of type double. So this will be the type that we're using for this demonstration. Now, some things to note here is that we have names for every element within every cluster and the elements of the array. This is necessary to properly generate the types. Another thing that we must do is fully initialize all arrays. This is necessary to properly send data using the RTI DDS toolkit for LabVIEW. Now, for very simple types, say a single array, doing so manually works perfectly well, but whenever it is necessary to do a nested type like this, it's a better idea to do so programmatically. So I've created a VI called fully initialized type.vi that does so for this type. So looking at this VI, it may look a little complex at first, but it's rather simple once you understand what you're doing. So we start off with the initial type, and we use an in-place element node to pull out the arrays. In this case, there's only one, and initialize a specific number of that type. So in this case, we index the array and then initialize the array at size 16. Now we've created 16 separate elements within this array, and now we need to initialize all of the arrays at the next level down. So here we'll use a auto-index for loop to do so. So once we auto-index the for loop, we will then pull out any subarrays, which in this case is the data array here, initialize it to a size, in this case 16, and repeat all the way down to where we are initializing arrays that have no subarrays within them. In this case, the heat map and distances, which we can do at the same time, and we initialize both of these to size 16, and in this case 16 by 16. And then just make sure and place the newly created arrays back into the clusters, and then you have the big cluster. So once I run this, which runs very quickly, I have now initialized the control. At this point, I simply right-click, create a new control, name it what I want to name it, in this case big cluster, go back to the front panel, disconnect it from the type def, copy it, go back to my actual control, paste it in, make sure everything's set to that the newly initialized array is set as default, save, and then close. Save it. All right, at this point, we have a fully initialized type that we can use to create our functions. So In order to get to the complex type generator, you go to the Tools menu, and you go down to the RTI DDS Toolkit, and then RTI DDS Complex Type Generator, and click. It'll execute this VI. So in terms of the type of generation, Simple gives you less options. When running the VI, we're going to choose Advanced. In terms of the path to the control, in this case, it's in demo/complex type/my complex type. Output directory generally should be the same as the directory containing the control. I do want to generate example VIs. I do not need to change my domain ID or my topic name. So once we generate the code, and now it is done. Go ahead and stop, and let's take a look at the folder which contains the code. So here we have the fully initialized type, which is this VI right here. Here is the my complex type control, and here are all the example. Here's the example code and all the VIs that were created for this type. So all of these VIs are the new API for accessing this type, either as a reader or writer, publisher or subscriber. And there's also 3 examples that are generated. In this case, we're just going to look at these 2 examples. So here's our reader, and here's our writer. You may need to clean up the code a little bit to be able to see your entire type. I'm going to go ahead and give it a type name on both sides and a key name. I only want new samples. And then I am going to run. So now I am publishing, and now I am subscribing. So as you can see, if I change this to, it shows up over here. And now if I go into here and say choose the 13th node and the 12th data array, and give it an MRID, and then go to the 13th node and the 12th data array, the MRID shows up. So in this way, you can create fairly complex types and use the RTI DDS Toolkit to send the data between different applications on the same computer or applications across your subnet fairly easily. Thank you very much.